Hi, this is Tisch Aitken, and it is Friday, October 18th, 2024. We just had a very powerful full moon in Aries, and this officially ends eclipse season, although we're still very much working with the energy of the post eclipses. That lunar eclipse that occurred on September 17th at 25 degrees of Pisces was the first eclipse in the Pisces Virgo series. And the North Node of Karma will enter Pisces on January 11th of next year. And all of the storms that we've seen globally, unfortunately, that's part of that eclipse conjunct Neptune. And Neptune has been transiting at the last degree of Pisces. It got to that degree from May 4th through September 4th of this year. And that is a big deal, And so many people have dealt with tremendous loss and devastation from the storms and the flooding and very emotional energy. And then we had the solar eclipse in Libra that occurred at 10 degrees of Libra on October 2nd. And that was a South Node eclipse, letting go of certain behavioral patterns or relationships that are keeping us from what we value. And that was the last eclipse in Libra that we're going to have, because we're segueing from the Aries Libra eclipses to the Pisces Virgo eclipse series. And now we had this full moon in Aries yesterday, and that was part of a cardinal grand cross. So very combative, contentious energy. Mars, which rules the sign of Aries, is going to retrograde on December 6th at 6 degrees and 11 minutes of Leo. And it's already moving slowly. It's in the sign of Cancer right now, where it doesn't like to be. It's in its fall position, likes being in the opposite sign of Capricorn, where it's ambitious and action oriented. In Cancer, it's crabby. It answers to the moon, which changes signs every 2.5 days and is very, in flux and, moody. So it's crabby in the sign of Capricorn, in Cancer. And not to mention that in this cardinal grand cross, Mars was at the world point at 22 degrees of Cancer, which is right at the world axis, hitting all of us. The full moon occurred at 24 degrees of Aries. And Eris, which is the goddess of discord and is Mars' sister, was exactly, or is at 24 degrees of Aries, was exactly conjunct the full moon. And Chiron, which is the wounded healer, is at 21 degrees of Aries. And that is also speaking to last year's eclipse in Libra that occurred, let's see, gosh, it was October 14th. It was at 21 degrees of Libra. And that's only within 3 degrees of this full moon, opposing this full moon that occurred yesterday. Exactly opposing where Chiron, which is the asteroid representing our wounds, where we need to heal, around relationships, around maybe people we've lost that we love, how we were partnering with ourselves during this difficult time. Neptune at the last degrees of Pisces, the mental health, the depression, feeling lost, the need to surrender. This full moon in Aries is very amped up, and I heard of a lot of sudden big news in the last few days, even including, well, on the day of the full moon. But we always feel Mars before it becomes exact. So I felt the full moon was, I woke up feeling it was Tuesday. And I had class that night. I hadn't slept well. And I wrote my article, I'm rallied to write, which is a good thing because I got it done. I was ready earlier than I meant to be, which is great because usually I have to catch up. So that was wonderful. But it's an amped up energy. I couldn't fall asleep till 4:30 in the morning. And I know a lot of people that I've spoken to in the last few days have had trouble sleeping. You feel very fired up. There have been fires, unfortunately. I know we've been dealing a lot with flooding, but there now is a lot of fire. And Venus entered Sagittarius yesterday, where it's going to be through November 11th. That is a fun-loving placement for Venus. It was in Scorpio up until yesterday, and it did make a good aspect to Pluto, which rules the sign of Scorpio. So they were in harmony yesterday before Venus changed signs and ingressed into the sign of Sagittarius. Venus in Scorpio is very intense. So Mars does rule Scorpio in ancient astrology. And so you have the ruler of Venus, and we're in Libra season. And at that time during the full moon, it was still in Scorpio. Even though it's making good aspects, still very intense. Mercury, which is communication, it represents the mind, thoughts, how you think, your perspective. Mercury in Scorpio gets to the bottom of things. It sees through people. It's going to remain in Scorpio through November 2nd. And we will enter Scorpio season on October 22nd. And the sun will square Pluto, because Pluto, which rules the sign of Scorpio, is at an anaretic degree. That's a degree of crisis. That's the last degree of a sign, and it's wrapping up its journey in the sign of Capricorn. So we're seeing a lot of endings, a lot of layoffs, a lot of situations with people in power that have misused power, that are being brought to light. A lot of situations in our lives where things aren't working. What do we need to wrap up? Pluto has been in Capricorn since January of 2008. What are we wrapping up in this 16-year story? And when we had the fall equinox, Venus, which rules the sign of Libra, and that's when we entered the Libra season, Venus squared Pluto on the day of the equinox, and then it entered Scorpio. And now we have Scorpio season, but before the sun enters Scorpio on the 22nd, the sun squares Pluto. And we have Pluto at the last degree of Capricorn through November 19th. And then it finally leaves Capricorn, never will come here again in our lifetime. On November 19th, it ingresses back into the sign of Aquarius, where it'll be through March of 2043. A lot of intensity. This week brought a lot of heaviness, and it's also showing us that Mars retrograde is going to be very frustrating. Mars rules Aries, which is a sign that likes to get things going. I teach an astrology class, and I love hearing the students' interpretations. And somebody was describing Aries energy, and it's true. It may get mad and boil up, but it's healthy in that it lets it, it processes it and releases it. That's a good thing about this energy. It may make you very impulsive and fiery and feisty and act in a more rash manner, but you don't hold on to it. Whereas with Scorpio, and I am a Scorpio, so I can say empirically in my life this has happened, where you hold on to anger or resentment a longer period of time. Aries, again, it just boils over, and that's it. But Scorpio, how Scorpio deals with Mars, and remember, Pluto is the higher octave of Mars and rules the sign of Scorpio. It's the modern ruler, and Mars is the ancient ruler. So we're dealing with Mars at the world point in this full moon. Mars opposed Pluto in this full moon and squared both the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries, which it rules. It also squared Eris, which is the goddess of discord, and Mars' sister, and it made a square to Chiron, the asteroid of wounds and healing, and what we need to heal, collectively. So a lot going on, a lot of intensity, but we're also going to have, I think, with Venus entering Sagittarius, there is more levity. That's a positive thing. And Mercury will trine Saturn on the 21st, helpful for making plans and getting things going. But knowing that, Sun square Pluto, entering Scorpio season, Pluto leaving the sign of Capricorn during Scorpio season. On November 3rd, Mars will make an exact opposition to Pluto. That is very intense, and that is during Scorpio season, both of the rulers. And then Mars will ingress into the sign of Leo, where it retrogrades on December 6th. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. If there are big things you need to launch, get it going as soon as possible. Mars is already in its shadow, but it's still direct technically. It retrogrades December 6th. We have about 6 weeks left approximately, right? Maybe a little less, but get it going. There are things we're not going to be able to control if we have to, some things we're going to have to do when Mars is retrograde, and it will be retrograde from December 6th through February 23rd, and it will be in Cancer through November 3rd. Then it re-enters Cancer on January 6th, and it will remain in Cancer through April 18th altogether. Again, not a great placement for moving ahead, but we got to work with what we got to work with. And I think the idea is the North Node of Karma is entering Pisces on January 11th, where it will transit the next 18 months after that. And we have the eclipses in the Pisces Virgo axis. We have Neptune transiting at the final degrees of Pisces on and off through February 15th of 2026. That's having a sense of trust. That's having a sense of faith and surrendering. And I'm not saying to be passive and do nothing, but in some cases, we're going to have to release control. Pluto and Capricorn wrapping up. There are some things that are not always in our control. And we are in a world where we're instant gratification. I mean, and for a lot of people right now that have been affected by these awful travesties and flooding and storms, they don't have power and all these not even luxuries, regular amenities right now. But in general, our society has gotten so used to that. And there's some things we need to listen to our intuition, work with that more. We've gotten so technological and robotic, but we need to work more with spirituality and faith, and in some cases, surrendering when we have to be patient. And this full moon, which had so much happen in such a rapid pace, that may be the case, but things are going to slow down, and we're going to see that in various stages. Mars retrograde, North Node entering Pisces, the North Node meeting up with Neptune in Pisces, I believe in February. So we've got a lot to work with. Good luck. Rocky week. It's starting to ease. Mercury trine Saturn. That's a positive thing. That's on the 21st. We're approaching that. Venus and Sagittarius, bringing some fun, hopefully having a little bit of fun. It's a generous, benevolent placement of Venus, social placement, and trying to help other people right now. We just had Jupiter and Pluto station. Jupiter retrograded in Gemini, which is local environments and neighborhoods, and many people are relying on neighbors to get them through right now. And Pluto stationed direct, and it's gonna pack a punch. It really is. So good luck. Take care.